Thank you, Count Corla. I wish to speak against the private member's motion for the simple reason that I believe the technical group's private member's motion contains an inherent contradiction in it. On the one hand, the technical group would have this House instruct the Minister for Finance, as the controlling shareholder in the covered banks, to adopt a policy of using whatever emergency measures are deemed necessary to reduce the unsustainable debt burden placed on mortgage holders, and on the other, to ensure that the means used minimise the burden on the taxpayer and ensure that householders can contribute fully to our national recovery. While on this side of the House, of course, we agree that it is essential for the recovery of this state that householders can contribute fully to our national recovery, we must not do so, and we must not provide that they do so in a way that further burdens taxpayers with debt. We, on this House, most of us would agree wholeheartedly with some of the concerns raised by the technical group. Deputy McGrath, who in his address criticised the lack of members of the government parties present. Unfortunately, Deputy McGrath didn't hang around long enough to hear any of us speak, or indeed to hear the other side of the motion. But notwithstanding that, I would like to commend Deputy McGrath for his concern for equality and social justice, which is fully shared by the members of this House on this side of the floor. However, I fail to see how it contributes to equality and social justice for taxpayers to be further burdened with debt, which is effectively what is proposed by the technical group here tonight. The technical group propose, in a rather untechnical manner, because I have yet to hear a single proposal from the technical group other than a reiteration of the concerns shared by everybody in the House, but what they propose is that we can somehow magically write off the debt, as if it had absolutely no consequence. Well, it does, because as we are sorely aware at this side of the House, our banks, in particular our pillar banks, require capitalisation so that they can again fulfil the role that banks play in modern economies, so that they can again lend money into the economy, so that businesses can acquire the credit they need to survive on a day-to-day basis, and so that, yes, so that people can again buy houses from property developers such as Mr. Wallace, who told us that 50% of the people, Deputy Wallace, excuse me, who told us that 50% of those who acquired properties from him are now in negative equity. Well, Deputy Wallace proposes, I think, some type of Houdini economics, where we can all fly clear of the decisions that were made, and everybody who took out a mortgage did so in the belief that they could repay that mortgage. We on this side of the House are fully cognizant of the fact that the economic state and the economic circumstances in this state have changed, and changed dramatically. It is for that reason that the government are effectively requiring banks, and the Minister for Finance outlined in considerable detail the government's proposals and the government's requirements of lending institutions to ensure that the changed circumstances are taken account of. However, Deputy Wallace pointed to Eamon de Valera's, who represented Clare long before I did, and talked about the land annuities and how de Valera refused to pay back the land annuities, and that this was somehow a magic solution without consequence. Well, it wasn't without consequence. De Valera's actions led to the land war, to an economic war between this state and its major trading partner, a land war and an economic war which arguably crippled our biggest economy for 20 years. It was very far from without consequence. And secondly, de Valera took those actions in a very different world to the one in which we now live, in a world where this state could exist in splendid isolation from our trading partners. That is simply not now the case. We have, as a state, to exist in a modern world, in a world where international finance and international agreements made by this state must be fulfilled, including, of course, the bank guarantee, which my colleagues in the Labour Party opposed, and which, of course, the government which Deputy McGrath supported brought in. We are, each of us, now suffering the consequences of that, and each and every taxpayer in this state is shouldering the burdens of that bank guarantee now.
Thank you, Deputy McNamara.
Thank you. What I propose is that those taxpayers be not further burdened with the consequences of that guarantee, that the weakest and most vulnerable in our country...
I'll have to ask you to conclude.
Thank you. That the weakest and most vulnerable are not saddled with further taxes.
Deputy McNamara, I'll have to ask you to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy McCarthy.